Hey guys and girls, Board now back with you. On this video I return to Ozark. So this is season 2, episode 4. The episode is called Stag. Full spoilers from the start of this review. And a big episode for Rachel and for the ongoing plot with her and Roy as he's basically blackmailing her to try and get information from the birds on a wiretap, and things start to get pretty intense between them and start to come to a head. So Roy continues to pressure Rachel, including pretending to be a Blue Cat bar customer at some point to just send a message, then I'm watching you all the time, I want results. There's an amusing scene when Rachel has casual sex with a bar pickup, and she calls him Marty as part of the sex to irritate Roy, who is listening in on the transmitter. So I really enjoy that scene, but there's a lot of pressure on Rachel in this episode because the birds themselves are starting to question if she might be an informant. They Wendy in particular is suspicious because of the timing of her returning back to town, and she sort of covers herself by she tells Marty at one point then she came back for the handicap kid who works at the Blue Cat for his sake, because he basically lost his job without her being around, and she obviously has sympathy for him, but that's her sort of reasoning and her cover story. Of course it's not quite true. So there's a good scene actually with Wendy and Rachel where Wendy suspects that she might be an informer, and it's a great staring contest between them really. But Marty is a bit more trusting. Obviously he's built up this rapport with Rachel, and there is sort of a respect there, and probably Marty isn't as suspicious or cynical by nature as Wendy is, so that definitely is part of it. But Rachel actually is working both sides a little bit, because at one point she tells Marty and the birds in general that the guy in the Blue Cat, the suspicious looking guy, is in fact a police officer, is petty, and that he might be spying on them, that sort of thing. So it's kind of a way to get suspicion off her and take the focus off, and to gain their trust. But I think Wendy is still very suspicious, still questioning it a lot. But that's a big part of the episode, and I really like those scenes. It's sort of it does make it quite intriguing and hard to predict the way it'll go. I think because Rachel has been a sympathetic character pretty much all the time she's been on the show, it inherently draws you towards her plight and makes you worry about what might happen to her, because she's obviously in a very difficult position. Another thing I think which is quite clever about the drama is that they've made the FBI guy, Roy, very unlikable, very sort of slimy and sort of unscrupulous, and it actually does make it easier to root for the other characters around him, and it just shows that this is a drama which is kind of rooted in the everyday in some ways, where things aren't all black and white. The other thing with Rachel in this episode, which again is a sort of a desperation type tactic, but she actually befriends Ruth, and they have a nice little scene at the bar. And Ruth is going through a fair bit at this point with various things going on, and she doesn't totally trust the bird. She's obviously got her own family problems, and she confides in Rachel, and Rachel is almost using this to sort of use Ruth to get like information from Marty, because obviously Roy is getting very impatient. So there you have it. But the big dramatic end of the episode is then, like, Roy does obtain a search warrant for the Birds' home because he suspects that he might have enough from what he's gotten so far from Rachel and then from a little bit from Ruth. So he thinks he might have enough. So he does get a search warrant, and he identifies himself to Marty and to Wendy for the first time, and they break in. And obviously there's a bit of a tension whether there's that much there which the FBI can use, but I think definitely Wendy and Marty have gotten accustomed to, sort of hiding their sort of information. But obviously because it's an unexpected sort of raid, then there might be stuff laying around which they could use against them. We'll have to see. Other stuff going on is that Sam actually gets to run the Lickety Splits, which is the fantastic name for the strip club, which is absolutely glorious. And the reason for that is because of Ruth's felon conviction. It's sort of deemed that she can't legally run it. So Sam, sort of in name only, is like running it. And that's definitely going to have some different things, because Sam's another character who up to this point has only played like a minor role and has been largely quite sympathetic, but you can almost see the scenario where he could become quite corrupted by working in that sort of an establishment. And there's stuff going on with him and one of like the dancers who definitely takes a shine to him. So I guess watch this space on that sort of thing. And yeah, it's sort of deemed that Ruth cannot be associated with Marty as the state are like inspecting the casino and like the application. So sort of eyes being kept, and like there's a health board check and what have you, and various things going on that cause the future of like the business into doubt. The only other big sort of plot is that Buddy's health declines, and he does go into hospital. It is quite tense and dramatic, but he does recover in the end. Obviously, when he finally does die, which you probably suspect is sooner rather than later, I think it's going to be a big sort of drama for the Birds and the whole family, because it's one of those things that testament to the writing where they have actually made Buddy a more likeable, engaging character since he first appeared in season 1. I mean, at this point, they've built up a rapport with him and the family, and it actually now feels like a big deal whenever he is in poor health, and this could be the end, and the effect it has on particularly the children and Jonah as well. So it's kind of a credit to how things have developed, really, because he seemed like quite an odd character at first that you weren't quite sure if you were going to really root for him or care about him in any way. And the only other thing in a way is then Wyatt starts suspecting more that Marty could have killed Russ and Boyd, and it's sort of heightened by Charlotte's admission that the Birds were at the scene. She lets that slip, and that's obviously an interesting moment. So that sort of adds to the drama and the tension for the Bird. But definitely one of the intriguing factors at the moment is the kids starting to learn more, but still being kept at arm's length by the parents and not knowing the full truth. And in some ways that could come back and backfire on them, because Charlotte, it's almost like if you don't have the full picture, you maybe don't know what you can and can't say. And obviously they've warned Charlotte maybe hanging out with Wyatt isn't the best because of that. But, she's a teen, they've been getting close, they've been talking a lot, and you don't always think of these things. So obviously that dropping that omission, has caused a bit of another worry, let's say, from Marty and Wendy. But that's the episode. Another good episode. That's Stag. As I continue my Ozark watch, building up to the final episodes, which land at the end of April, so not long to go now. It's April 1st as I record this. But thanks for listening. Like and subscribe as always. Share me out on social media. You can also support me on Patreon for just $1 a month. So that's patreon.com/boardnow. Thanks for listening, guys. See you again soon.